As your team scales, your security policies will inevitably become more complicated. Unfortunately, you may not always be able to trust the people creating the code or deploying resources to always adhere to security or cost concerns. This is where Open Policy Agent comes into play. While you can create some basic policies and tests in Terraform, OPA's Rego language is much more robust and can be separated from the infrastructure code to improve your security footprint. So let's see how we can use OPA to test our Terraform deployments to ensure they don't include instance types that aren't approved. Now we'll do this by integrating OPA with GitHub Actions so the whole thing is automated. Let's take a look. So here I am with the Terraform code. As you can see, we've basically just deployed a simple AWS instance here, which is defined in my tfvars file as a t3.micro, but of course this could be changed and another instance type could be specified. Now let's say we want to ensure that the only instance types that are deployed are a T3 micro and a T3 small. So let's take a look at how we can do that. Now the first thing I want to do is head into my GitHub Actions here. And what I've done is I've picked out my Terraform plan job right here, and I've picked one of the latest plans that I've run, and I actually removed a couple things to simplify it. And I've got my plan right here. And of course that looks terrible, but basically what I've done in my plan.yaml is ensured, here I've got an out plan.tf plan, Terraform show -json plan.tf plan to temp plan.json, etc. But the most important thing is that this plan was output to standard out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this whole plan just like that, copy that, and I'm going to paste it into a new file here. So I'll do that. I'm going to save that file as plan.json just to keep things simple. All right, that kind of formats a little bit of it. I'm actually going to move this into a policies directory only to get it out of the way. And then what I'll do is right click and format document. Of course, there's also Shift Alt plus F there to do so. All right, that's better, but it's still huge. Now, what we're really concerned about is the instance and what's going to happen after the apply. So what I'm going to do first is Control K and Control 0 to automatically fold everything to make this a little easier to get through. I'm going to expand it. And as we can see here, we have planned values, resource changes, etc. Resource changes is what we care about. Now there's a lot of extra information under all of these, but I'm actually not concerned while testing this and figuring this all out. So I'm going to get rid of any of that extra stuff there that I don't need. All right, now I'm going to open the resource changes, and each one of these corresponds to a resource. As you can see here, most importantly, of course, the AWS Instance.Grafana server is there. So we definitely want that one. Now, to make sure that we do test this right, it's probably a good idea to include more than one resource type just to make sure we're not accidentally looking into other resources. So what I'm going to do is just delete all but these two resources here. So we've got the Grafana server, and then we've got the GitOps Internet Gateway. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to leave that alone. And now within this Grafana server block here, we're going to take a look in the change. Now what I'm concerned about is the after. This is after the change, so this is what is proposed, what change is going to be proposed. And in this case, if you scroll down, you'll see that the instance type is a t3.micro. So if you wanted to, you could actually clean this up a lot. We can scroll up here and delete a lot of this just to make it easier. Once again, this is all so that we can test things just a little bit easier, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. So that's good. And I'll go ahead and just pull all of this out as well. Now, everything that you're seeing here can be tested against using OPA. So if any of that is important, then you can use OPA to test against it. But right now, we've got just the instance type. So I don't have to worry about anything else there. In fact, I'm even going to get rid of this stuff as well. The cleaner, the better. Okay, perfect. All right. And honestly, this one's so small, I'm just going to leave it the way it is, I think. Yeah, we'll just leave it the way it is for right now. I'm going to copy what's left. Now I'm going to head to the Rego playground right here, play.openpolicyagent.org. There are some great extensions for VS Code to do this, but I don't want to sift through them all because they're all at varying degrees of reliability. But this, even though it's a little clunky, it works. So the input right here is what is going to be analyzed by OPA. So I'm going to paste this in, this plan that we've got. And as you can see, it is a lot smaller. I'm going to drop this a little bit and this there. So this is a lot more manageable. So now we can actually work with this instance type to make sure things work. So as you can see here, we've got a package, we've got import, we've got a bunch of commented out stuff here. Now I'm not going to go into the full language manual here. I strongly recommend you look through this policy language documentation here. It is incredibly useful. And you can also use AI if you need to get started, but do be aware it can be painfully outdated, especially for something that moves as fast as Rego. So let's get started. So package, this is a logical package name here, has nothing to do with anything. It's not importing anything or anything like that. All it is giving you something to reference whenever we have to reference the policy. So we'll just use Terraform here since it's going to be analyzing Terraform. Then after that, import rego.v1. That's what we want. Now the normal Rego spec is fine, but there are a lot of new features in v1 that aren't quite live if you don't import this. So you'll need to make sure you do have this import here. So now I'm just going to delete everything else. And the first thing I want to do is define my allowed instance types. So we'll call that allowed instance types. Then we're going to use this fun little walrus operator here to set that. And if you're not familiar with this, this is basically setting this variable as opposed to checking for equality. And we're going to set that as t3.micro and t3.small. And if you want to keep it in free tier, you can also do t3. And if you want to keep it in free tier, you can also keep it t3 micro and t2 micro. However you want to do this, this is totally up to you. And then what we want to do is just set the deny rule. And the deny rule, of course, is going to let the system know that this is denied if it's not one of these types. Now keep in mind, this is also logical. This isn't doing any magic behind the scenes or anything. Basically, all we're doing is, if we say deny if, is specifying that we want it to say it's denied. That's all. It's not communicating with anything else. So let's take a look at kind of what that looks like. So what we'll do is we will use an iterator. We're going to say some resource in input.resource_changes. So again, this is all the input, and resource changes is where we're going to access this instance type. So what we'll say then, now we're working with resource, and this will access both resources. We want to say resource.type AWS instance. So we're only interested in resource types that are an AWS instance. So if I were to evaluate that, you can see the deny is true. Now, if I were to say AWS instance thingy, evaluate, we now don't have any deny there. So the deny is essentially false. And then of course the same goes for if I were to use the AWS Internet Gateway there, that would also be true. Just like that. All right, so this makes iterating very easy. We don't have to do a whole lot of weirdness here. So a resource type is AWS instance. That's what we're concerned about. So then let's access the instance type. And that's going to be that resource.change.after.instance_type. So once again, resource changes, which is here. Resource type is AWS instance. And then we want what's after the change. So change, then after, and then instance type. And remember, there was a lot more there, but we deleted it all just to clean this up. So now we have an instance type, which should be t3.micro. So now what we want to do is say if this instance type is not in this list here, then we're going to deny. So according to the Rego language model, we'll say not instance type in allowed instance types, just like that. So evaluate. Okay, right now a T3 micro is in the instance types. So let's say AWS rolls out a T7 micro. We evaluate, and now it denies. Perfect. And then of course also if we were only accepting T7 micros, it will also deny. All right, perfect. Now if I evaluate, that deny goes away. So now what if we want a little more information on that? Let's actually use a formatted string and set a message. And what we're going to say is deny contains a message if. So this way we get a little more context about what's going on that we can actually add to a comment in our GitHub PR. So we'll say that message and set that to sprintf, which again is just how we're going to create this formatted string. I'm going to do this on another line here. Instance type for, and then we'll use this %s is, and once again, a %s, and we're going to provide these values. These values will be replaced, of course, but must be, and once again, %s. So now we, of course, have to define those, and these are defined in order, and I'll do this on another line to make it look better. Resource.address is the first thing we're going to say. So instance type for the resource address, which is here, resource.address. So we want to say instance type for AWS Instance Grafana Server. After that, we'll say instance type, which is defined here, of course. And then after that, we'll say allowed instance types. All right, that should be pretty good here. Actually, this needs to be terminated here, I believe. Okay, policy is not formatted. Click to format. I just added a little more space. That is perfect. So let's see what happens. All right, so we get our deny here, but it's an empty list, which is fine. So there's nothing there. There's nothing denied about this, essentially. But of course, if we change this to that t7.micro, evaluate instance type for AWS Instance Grafana Server is t3.micro, but must be t7 micro or t3.small. All right, and of course, if we change this to what it's supposed to be and change this to a t7.micro, AWS Instance Grafana Server is t7.micro, but must be. All right, and I'll change that back to where it's supposed to be, evaluate, and once again, we have an empty list. All right, perfect. So we formatted this whole policy here. Go ahead and copy that. Let's head back and in a policies directory here, I'm just going to create instance.rego and paste that in. Actually, I'm going to rename this to instance-policy.rego. All right, so we have our policy here. Everything there should be good to go. And of course, this can be passed in as secrets, but we're not going to get into that since you should know how to do that. But I would strongly recommend you pass this in as secrets to make it more dynamic. And now let's go ahead and add OPA to our actions. So I'm going to head to my plan.yaml right here, which is running the Terraform plan. We're going to just add it to that. If you want to separate it out, do remember you'll need to pass that plan between your different actions. But since it's all here, should be a lot easier to deal with. So what I've done is use the setup OPA action here, open policy agent setup -OPA. Of course, you might want to take a look at that. I strongly recommend looking through the documentation for that. And then we want to run the OPA tests. Now you can download OPA and do all of this locally, but here I've done it all for you so we don't get too far into the weeds and make this a 30-minute video. So here what I've got is I've just specified a variable OPA out, and we're running the OPA command line that is installed by this setup OPA action, OPA eval --data, and we pass in our data right here. Now, as you can see, I've had to back up a little bit to get to that policies directory. I do actually recommend that you pass in the full path here. Unfortunately, I did not, setting a bad example here, but typically you would want to set in the full path here instead of a relative path. But as you can see, I've had to back up and go into the policies directory. And the reason for that is because I've set the working directory as my Terraform directory. So this entire job here is actually running in Terraform. So it has to back up and go into policies. And of course, yours may be different, but we've got policies. That's plan.rego, but this is actually called instance policy.rego. And then the input is tmp/plan.json, which as you can see here, I'm pushing the plan.tfplan to temp plan.json. And we're referencing data.terraform.deny, which data.terraform is the package, .deny is the rule. And then what I'm doing is running a little JQ magic to pull the result, the expressions, and value. If you run this with an OPA, you can see exactly why I had to do that. But we're not going to get too far into the weeds there. I do recommend you download OPA, install it, and run it and play with this. And then what we're doing is we're checking OPA out. Now, if you remember, that deny rule was empty when it passed. All right, so as you can see here, we are checking to see if OPA out is empty. And if it is empty, we're just going to exit 0 and basically allow our everything to run without any errors. So anything that comes after this will just continue working. Now, if OPA out actually has something in it, such as this here, what we want is we want it to post to a comment. So as you can see here, I'm using the GitHub CLI. I'm posting a comment to this current PR number. So the event.pullRequest number. And the body is going to be OPA out. And then I'm going to exit 1, which fails everything and provides a failing check. Now do make sure that you are passing in your GitHub token to the environment so that it can use that. That is right here. And everything should be good to go. So let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to head to instance type, and I'm going to change that to a t3.large. And then I'm just going to git add, and then I'm going to create a feature branch and open a PR. So git checkout -b feature and git add, git commit -m, testing OPA, git push origin feature. Then I'm going to use the GitHub command line, GitHub PR create --fill. And that --fill is just creating the pull request using that last commit message. And we've got our pull request here. So I'll open that. And let's see what happens. Hopefully nothing breaks. It might, but we will see. All right, process completed with exit code 1, which means it failed, which is awesome. That's exactly what we were hoping for. Instance type for AWS Instance Grafana Server is t3.large, but most must be t3.micro or t3.small. All right, so one more thing to check and see if broke. It looks like it posted the comment. Open that little link right there. Instance type for Grafana Server is T3 large, but must be micro or small. Awesome, so everything worked. That is great. So now if we change this to t3.micro and git add, git commit -m updated instance type, git push origin feature. Let's go and take a look and see if we have a little more success this time. All right, it is running. We'll give that a little bit of time to finish up and we'll see what happens. All right, all checks have passed. We can take a look here and hop into the details, run OPA tests, and the result was nothing, which is exactly what we're hoping for. All right, so everything works. That is it. We can merge that now. Make sure you do not forget to do that. Go ahead and merge that new code, confirm merge, and then feel free to delete the branch or do whatever you need to do. All right, so that is all for this video. Thanks for watching.